You wanted the best. You've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, folks. It's Voss here from the ChrisVossShow.com. There you go. When the Iron Lady sings it, that makes it official. Welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. We certainly appreciate you guys coming on board with us. Remember, the Chris Voss Show is the family that loves you but doesn't judge you, at least not as harshly as your dad that one time you took apart his watch and he couldn't get it put back together, and he's never really liked you ever since. We all have been there, right? Is it just me? No, it's probably just me. Anyway, guys, we have an amazing guest on the show. And as always, for the last 15 years, going on 16, we've been bringing you the most smartest minds, the people who bring you their life journeys, their life experiences, hundreds of thousands of hours, a lifetime of hours they put into their trade or to their knowledge or to their experience between cathartic moments and rising from the ashes and everything they've gone through, and they bring and disperse that information to you. The Pulitzer Prize winners, the authors, the CEOs, the billionaires, all the wonderful people we've had on the show who come on and share with you what we like to call the Chris Voss Show Glow. And once you start drinking it, I'm having a cup here right now, the Chris Voss Show Glow, you just shine forth as you walk through your life going, my God, and people just will probably worship you. Or maybe not. I don't know. The attorneys say I can't say that. Anyway, guys, be sure to go to goodreads.com /Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com /Chris Voss. Chris Voss, one on the TikTok. Sign up for the big LinkedIn newsletter. I didn't know there was that many active people on LinkedIn. And also go to our 130,000 group on LinkedIn as well. Today, we have an amazing gentleman on the show. We're going to be talking to him and getting inspired. I think he's going to bring some inspiration to the show. David Ask joins us on the show. He's an entrepreneur, a creative, and calls himself, or maybe other people call him this, the most encouraging person on earth, which is the opposite of what people call me, the most discouraging people on earth, at least people close to me. That, and they usually refer to me in four-letter expletives. David Ask is a dynamic and innovative figure in the entrepreneurial landscape, renowned for his significant contributions to product development. At the helm of StatGuardPlus.com, he successfully propelled his unique product in the limelight, securing its presence in over 3,000 prominent retail stores, including industry giants like the Home Depot and Lowe's. This achievement not only underscores his prowess, I'm still learning to speak, people, in entrepreneurship, but also highlights his ability to navigate the competitive retail market. Beyond his entrepreneurial ventures, David is deeply involved in mentoring and leadership. He plays a pivotal role in 2 mastermind groups under the esteemed ISI Mastermind umbrella. His leadership in these groups demonstrates his commitment to fostering a community of like-minded individuals who are driven by growth and success in the entrepreneurial field. And we're going to be talking about some of this stuff today. Welcome to the show, David. How are you?
What's up, man? I'm glad to be here. I tell you what, I went back and listened to a ton of your podcasts over the last few weeks, and to be sitting here among those and to be on the show is an honor. So thanks for having me.
You are among those. So there you go. Give us your .coms. Where can people find you on the interwebs?
Sure. My personal website is David Ask. My last name is pronounced Ask, but it's spelled Ask. So davidask.com. And my main business is statguardplus.com, STAT guardplus.com.
There you go. And tell us, kind of give us your journey here, because you do a lot of things, and we of course want to cover StatGuard and find out what that is, because I'm mildly entertained by that.
Yeah.
But, give us a 30,000 overview about your journey and how you got launching your own company and going into Home Depot and Lowe's.
Man, it's funny because whenever I start to tell my story, and really in recent years, I'm actually getting more comfortable with it, and it's because I kind of found my people, like people that are kind of cut from the same cloth. So really from a young age, I mean, I started my first business when I was 16. and, of course, had no idea what I was doing, a whole lot of, excitement around some things. But then when, you actually have to go out and sell something, right? Things get a little scary, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
And also, oddly enough, I grew up in a real musical family where my mom was a music teacher. Both of my older siblings were, vocalists and so on. And well, so from an early age, I realized I could actually sing a lot better than I could do anything else. My attention span was about a big fat 0. And I really just, I wanted to hang out with people. I loved anything that involved, kind of something exciting and daring and inspirational and things like that, with regards to people.
Mhm.
Same time, there was this, I guess I'll paint the picture this way. The people, the older men, as it were, that I looked up to were always entrepreneurs. They always, it's like they were different, right? They had something else that, that the 9-to-5 guys didn't. And it's not to say that they're bad. They were just different. And I was just drawn to that.
Mhm.
But I didn't know what that, what's my niche, right? And so I tried a lot of different things. And then, of course, I'm 49 now. So really about 10 years ago, kind of started to find my stride, with this particular, thermostat guard with a combo lock and a little bit of a niche. And then, at that point, right, just figure it out like every other entrepreneur. It's start asking questions, start hanging out with people that, can help you, put that story together and that kind of thing. And started to find some traction, and it got kind of exciting.
There you go. So how did you get led into this product that you've launched?
Here's the cool thing. Technically, it was really not my idea. My brother-in-law called me one day. I was working for a large retail chain. I'm doing facilities management, and my brother-in-law called me one day, and he goes, "Where do I get he was kind of mad, like, where do I get a stat guard with a combo lock?" He goes, "Nobody can keep up with this stupid key." And he was working for banks that own foreclosed properties, and they would get them back up for sale. And of course, the agents would mess around with the thermostats, which caused the banks to have these high energy bills.
So what is a stat guard, so we can establish that?
Right. So it's just a box, that goes over a thermostat so people don't tamper with it. We all know the thermostat wars, right? Especially
The thermostat wars.
Yeah.
Yes. There's so many bodies left behind. With the, everyone grew up with that in their family. Dad is, did you touch the thermostat again?
Yeah. I forget what movie it is, even in the last few years, with Mark Wahlberg and
I think I've seen that meme bit.
Yeah,
it's the older guys.
Daddy's Home, not Daddy's Home. What is that? Yeah, it might be Daddy's Home.
I'm not sure
too.
the movie. I've just seen the meme on TikTok.
Yeah. Did you touch the thermostat?
Did you touch the thermostat? And then it was like some young girl or something.
Right. Yeah.
Some lodge or something. Yeah.
Yeah, so we all get it. And right, it's not my product isn't like some new thing. It's just a better mousetrap situation, so you don't have to keep up with that tiny key.
But that's the real key to, what entrepreneurs do. They build better mousetraps. So instead of having a key, yours does what?
It's just a 3-digit combination. So it's, kind of a little jog dial that you'd see on a briefcase or something. And what's nice too, of course, is you can change the code. So if somebody finds out what the code is, you can change it to something else, and pretty simple.
And I think what the brilliant thing about your product is it's not rocket science. It's not super software. It's taking something, like I remember, looking at paper clips when I was a kid going, I think that's pretty much done. Yeah. And then all of a sudden they came up with all these variations of paper clips. They had painted paper clips. You could get the flavor of your choice when it came to not don't eat people, but you can get the colored flavor of your choice. They had, and then they put ridges in them, and they put all sorts of different cuts in them that would hold it better, and angles, and different variations of it. And I was like, wow, okay, I guess there's a lot of improvement and innovation you could do to paper clips. Staples. Who would have thunk it? Yeah. And that's the beauty of an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur usually will take something, it's a pain point, sometimes for them, and they just go, hey, I think I can make this better. We even just had an author on recently who's a very successful novelist now. She used to read a lot of books, and she'd be like, God, I know so many ways to make this book better. If they would have done this or that, and she kept reading these books going, this could have done that. And so finally she says, I'm just going to write my own damn book the right way I like it. And it turns out everyone else likes it too. And so that's the beauty of just being an entrepreneur, finding pain points, basically solving people's problems.
It is. I mean, isn't it funny when you think about on a marketing level, it's the, front and center, what problem do you solve?
Mm-hmm.
Or if you're selling, Coca-Cola or something, there's not necessarily a problem, but hey, our product will make you happy if you drink it. You've got to convince somebody that they're sad, and unless they have your product, that, they're going to be happy, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But problems, I think it's way easier just to solve a simple problem.
And, people want comfort. And I think a lot of people too, the reason I'm highlighting this is a lot of people too, they come to me and they're like, I want to start a company. I want to do something like, AI. You don't know anything about AI, but I want to, that's the thing, or, the next big thing, or crypto, or, they're always trying to figure out something that they don't really have a passion for. They may not have a knowledge base for. And yet some of the simplest things, like with what you did, it's one of those, oh, gee, why didn't I think of that moments? And if you could make products like that, I've seen a million products where I'm like, fucking duh. Why didn't I think of that?
The funny thing though is getting here's the weird thing. And this is how naive I was, right? If you build it, they will come, right? That's just not true. There are so many products out there that are viable. I mean, they truly are better than what's sitting on the shelf, as it were. But then how do you get attention? How do you get it out there? And so there's it's amazing how, if you think about who's sitting in the seat, in the right seat on the bus in a company, right? You've got product developers, R&D, you've got, somebody manning the books, you've got marketing, you've got, delivery, all that kind of stuff. And it's amazing what happens, or what needs to happen in order to actually get a product out there.
There you go. But you got it out there, and I guess you navigated that maze. Was that hard to do? And getting into Lowe's and Home Depot and. So
let me tell you this story. I love hearing stories similar to this, just because it's I feel like I've had some divine intervention along the way. So for instance, Home Depot, right? You can't call them. I mean, they have an 800 number, but it says if you know your party's extension, dial it now. If you're a vendor, go to their website, click on vendors, and so I'm a dude working in facilities management for a retail chain. And, so when I go click on vendors, right, they want my financials and all this kind of stuff. I don't have any financials. I've got 10,000 thermostat guards sitting in a storage unit because I thought if I built it, they will come. And I didn't know any different, right? I'm just all excited. I'm getting after it and get it done. And so the interesting thing is I called my dad and I said, hey, who do you know that's really successful that might, point me in the right direction? So he, introduced me to a buddy of his who introduced me to a guy. And I remember the day, by the way, Chris, I was mowing my lawn and I felt my phone vibrate in my pocket. So I shut the mower off, answered the phone. And it was a gentleman named Bob who had 3 products on Home Depot's shelf.
Oh, wow.
And he said, hey, tell me about this. So I did. He goes, send me a couple of units. I'm going to meet, with the buyer in a few weeks. So he walked it in the door.
Holy crap.
Sat it in front of them. And of course, they're like, this is intriguing. I wish we would have thought of this. And about a year later, we finally, finished the onboarding process and the, resourcing it, all that kind of stuff, and started to get some traction on homedepot.com. And then about a year after that, we got on the shelf, and it's been a heck of a ride. That's, a much longer story than we could unpack here, but
sure, yeah.
Holy smokes, for a saga, really.
But you were asking questions, you were asking for help, you were networking, you're doing a lot of these things to try and make things work. You weren't getting stuck with one model or one box. But an important lesson for if you a lot of people think that even I remember seeing that a lot when the big app rush was going on with the iTunes or the iPhone first came out, and everyone is making apps.
Yeah.
And so many people, they will put all their money into making the app, and I'd be like, so how much have you budgeted for marketing? And they're like, no, the app's so great, it's just gonna go.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's not how it works.
No.
And they're like, but that happened to Twitter, and that happened to, a couple of these companies, and Twitter, and I think it was Foursquare or something. They had gone, and they actually did have a marketing campaign, but they had gone to South by Southwest and it had blown up. But a lot of people just came back with data that they're like, oh, they just went there and it blew up. They just went there and promoted it. And it's no, they had a full on marketing campaign that, made it the thing at the thing. But, for a lot of years, I would just hear it like, you just take your app to Southwest and it blows up. I'm like, no, it doesn't.
And I live here in Nashville, Tennessee, right? And I'm a vocalist with a ton of other vocalists. And quite often, just like I did back in the day too, you think, all right, I'm going to record a record, and if you build it, they will come. There's so much talent here that would just blow your mind. I go to lead worship on church, and the guy, on Sundays, and the guys standing with me are playing for Alabama and have produced records for Backstreet Boys and all kinds of stuff. But it's amazing how we think the cream rises to the top with regards to just ability and talent. Quite often it does. But quite often it's the one who laces up their shoes at 5 a.m. and gets out there and hustles and knocks on doors.
There you go. And if you see some people in the music business, sometimes they don't have any talent either. But they did the marketing. Or somebody did it for them, or they're just pretty. I don't know. Right. It helps if you're pretty, evidently.
Yeah, exactly.
So there you go.
Not me.
Not me either. We have to get work for a living. We just can't flash our rings and
that's right.
Our eyes. But I'd rather have it that way anyway. Let's get into, so you developed the product. I just think this product is fun. The Stack Art
man,
Plus.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
It's just so brilliant. It's so simple. It's not, there's so many people, and they're like, I was talking to somebody the other day, and he's trying to do everything that everybody else does. I want to be a YouTube star. I want to be big on TikTok. You suck on video. No one can understand your communication. You suck on video. You have a hard accent. And, he'd been trying for 3 years on YouTube to be successful. And, I could look at any one of his videos and tell him all I need to see was one video and tell you, you're never going to make it here. Yeah. And, being able to communicate, if you have a really heavy accent and you're just not that interesting as you think you are, which is pretty much describes me on the show.
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, your voice, and I'm sure you've heard this for years, but it's unbelievable. Like you have the quintessential radio podcast. I mean, it's kind of almost creepy. You almost don't feel like you're real. But really though, your voice it's like the quintessential. When I first heard your podcast, I'm like, is this the host? Like, what in the world? It's that good. You have that tempo. Thanks. And the I don't know.
Tempo is a real part of it. If you understand comedy and delivery entertainment, tempo is important. We used to keep a tempo machine beside me, but I kind of keep it in my head. And what's nice is the intro sets the tempo.
Right.
The main thing is making sure the guest gets the same energy and tempo too, which we usually have if they read the show notes. But thank you. I appreciate that comment.
Yeah.
The voice is important. And entertaining is important. There's so much that goes into being a host than just setting up a pedestrian podcast. But what was my point on that? But yeah, it's doing what you're good at. Oh, I have radio face. I think that was the joke. I have radio face. So that's why God is like, he's ugly. Give him a radio voice because he has radio.
Hey, you can't go wrong when you've got a beard. When you've got a beard. Hey, hold on? Can I tell a quick beard joke?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so it's great when you have a beard and you go out, go out on the town with your friends who don't have a beard because everybody assumes that you're their leader.
Is that how it works?
Yeah, you just look a bit more masculine.
Is that? I tried doing the big masculine Viking beard thing, and it just doesn't work on me. And it was fucking up my dating pool. Like all the girls are like, "You look 10 years older with the beard," and I'm like, "I'm trying to look like a masculine Viking dude," and I just can't pull it off. So I gave up, but I do. We're rocking the goatee.
That's all right.
So I got a little bit of that. So let's talk about some of the other things that you do. I think you do some coaching and some counseling, and you help people sort of achieve the same sort of results you do. Tell us about what you do in that sphere of your life.
Yeah, so it's kind of neat. I guess it's been almost 6 years ago, or no, over that 7 years ago, I was introduced to the ISI Mastermind, and a guy named Aaron Walker started ISI. And I'll be honest, at the time, I was just kind of getting my business going, and that imposter syndrome was very present. I'm looking at the guys that are in the group. I knew some of them, and I'm thinking, man, they're they're beyond me, and why would they want me to, sit at their table and to give them counsel or encouragement and things like that. And of course,
Because you're paying membership fees.
Right. Yeah. But, at the same time, I didn't know what I didn't know. And I kind of lacked some self-awareness as well, as far as my strengths and, things like that, that I had to offer and so on. And so it was kind of funny. When I started to gain traction in my business, I realized very quickly I'm in over my head. I don't know how to scale this. And I just so wanted to, to have it be a home run.
Mm-hmm.
So I reached out to, we call him Big A, and I, met, he actually lives here in Hendersonville, just on the north side of Nashville. And we met at Starbucks, and we were sitting there, shooting the bull. And he looked at me and said, David, you don't know what you don't know. And I want to encourage you to jump in.
Mm-hmm.
And in that moment, I'm like, all right, I have to do this because I don't know what I don't know. And it's been amazing. This is my posse, right? This is a board of directors for my business. These are my band of brothers, for my personal life. And we kind of, very, very literally in some ways, like we're just the knights at the round table, right? We're sitting at a round table. I'm the facilitator of a couple of groups now. I lead 2 groups, but the table's round. There's no sense that I'm some guru dispensing wisdom as needed,
But unless you have the beard, then you're
but it's so cool to sit at a table, and in the council of many, there's wisdom, right? So you throw up something in the middle of the table and say, hey guys, can we beat this up? How would you look at this? And so it's great to have, all of that input. But then of course, ISI's got I think 150, different men in the group. So we've got access to a lot of really smart guys, a lot of experience. So it's been super helpful.
That's really good. That's really good. So why are masterminds important? Why is it good to have that sort of networking for people that maybe haven't discovered it?
Yeah. On a basic level, if, I was a solopreneur, right? So I'm trying to sit in every seat on the bus, and it's debilitating.
Yeah.
I mean, it's this whole idea of, find it, kill it, drag it home, skin it, cook it. I mean, you're just doing all of those things. And of course, once again, out of ignorance, I just thought every entrepreneur, every business owner just starts to learn to do these things. That's really low and limited thinking. So when I got into ISI, they were like, wait a second, if you're not, really great at something, or you really enjoy it, you're probably not going to do it well. In fact, you're probably going to avoid certain things. So as soon as you're financially able, start delegating some of that, get some fractional, people involved, or virtual assistants and things like that. So right now I've got, 2 VAs, and it's amazing, when I start offloading some of those other tasks that I don't like, because I'm not a details guy. I hate details. I like people. I like sales. I like marketing. I like talking, obviously, but when I started, again, wise counsel, they could look at me, read my label. Sometimes we're inside the peanut butter jar, as it were, and we need somebody to read our label. So they started helping me understand me. You need someone on the outside to say, hey, David, guess what? When you do these things, your energy rises. When you talk about these things, you look like you're going to, fall over dead. So how about we start to avoid some of that stuff? So I, started to create a much more wise, business model, and, sat in my seat on the bus and, that kind of thing as much as I could while I scaled my business.
There you go. A lot of people need that. There's, I was lucky enough to have a partner for 13 years who I was the visionary and the creative, and he was the rudimentary guy who could do, the most rudimentary, annoying tasks that make me insane.
Oh yeah.
Which is the whole reason I became an entrepreneur, because I don't do rudimentary well. I don't work the line well, but he was good at it. And so we made a great team, because I could develop and create, and then he could implement the systems and do them. And I could move on to more creation and innovation. And so it worked really well. And it's, if you can hire people that can do that now, with VAs and stuff, when we were coming up in business in the 90s, there wasn't any of this. There wasn't the internet yet. It was just barely coming online. And, you had to navigate, everything you had to do for a business, and really the only business sort of mentor you could have was an attorney, and you had to pay him, and your attorney would give you, business advice and accountants and stuff, but you had to pay them too. But nowadays, where you can have mentors and people and other things and coaches and stuff, man, I would have killed for having that back then.
Oh, I mean, really,
scaled us so much quicker. Yeah.
Isn't it crazy? Yeah. You feel like you're alone, and it's that isolation. Isolation is just we often say it in ISI is the enemy of excellence.
Yeah.
I mean, you're just,
And you brought up the point that we talk about on the show fairly regularly. There's the things you know, the things you don't know, and the things you don't know, you don't know. And those are the most important things you can do.
Yeah.
In fact, we recently had Brandon Dawson on, who works with Grant Cardone for his book, 9 Figures. And we got into that. And it's something I've always told my nephew and my niece, as they go through life, try and figure out what you don't know, and don't lock into stupid thinking. Don't lock your thinking into whatever it is, whether it's politics, whether it's life, whether it's what society is telling you to do, what life is telling you to do. Try and understand the game and know the game. You either run the game or the game is run on you, I like to say.
Yeah, and I like that.
And so you're talking about earlier about, finding out what you don't know is so important, and it expands your horizons so much. And it always seems like the thing that comes out of you in the blue, that whacks you upside the head, is the thing you didn't know existed. And so at least having your eye on that horizon can help.
Yeah, this idea of assumptions, right? I assume so many things. We tend to project our own worldview and personality and all that kind of stuff on other people. And it's kind of funny. As you were talking there, I was thinking about this idea of vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
So if we are, I guess, really wanting to be effective leaders and scale our businesses and, lead our families well, things like that, vulnerability is really like the precursor to growth, because you have to admit, I don't know what I don't know. And you have to take a more humble approach, where most of the world, right, is telling us you got to smash through walls and you got to be the man and all that kind of stuff. And I'm finding that sucks. That gets you frustrated, and nobody likes you.
Smashing through walls. That's basically the Kool-Aid guy, isn't it? I don't know.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
It didn't look very healthy over there, but it's one of those things where you look at it and you go, there's so many hats you have to wear in a business. As you said, all the seats on the bus, there's so many different things that you need to do. And trying to do them all is just nuts and suicide, because you've got to be able to scale. You've got to be able to delegate.
Yeah.
If you're an entrepreneur who has a staff and you're still micromanaging everything and trying to do everything, you're just wasting time that you could spend doing something else.
Oh man, I tell you what, for years I did that, and and it was debilitating. I think I took on so much stress, or held so much stress, by acting out of my authenticity. Right? I was acting. All this big. Everybody wants to be authentic, right? Well, when you're running a business, all of a sudden you just start thinking crazy, and I guess I have to be everything to everybody, and I got to be Superman.
Yeah,
it's debilitating. You carry around a load of assumptions and whatever else that you were never meant to carry. It's tough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's and you can't carry the world on your shoulders. I mean, there has to be a time where you delegate, where you have a stack of management sort of form and leadership and everything else. As you've gone through this, what are some of the aspects of leadership that you've had to develop, or you've found yourself utilizing to help you lead your business, help you teach other people to lead in their companies as well?
Yeah, so this is the kind of stuff, honestly, I get really excited about. So I'm gonna kind of dive into the deep end of the pool here. My favorite quote is by Benjamin Disraeli. He's a former PM of England back in the, I think, 1800s. And he said, the greatest good you can do for another is not to share with him your riches, but to reveal to him his own.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there's something so marvelous, about looking at someone. I like to say the things, that are not just true about someone, but the truest things about them. Those that zone of genius, that top 10% of things that when they operate in that sphere, that courageous, that moment when you see someone just step out and say something that is meaningful and convictional, and they do it in a way that is, passionate and expressive, right? It's that thing you don't see very often, because we're almost afraid to do that type of thing, because what if somebody doesn't like that? What if we get, laughed at, or, whatever that is? And it might be, hey, you share a song, or you share a poem, or you present a product or an artwork, or, whatever that might be. It's that highest good in you, the greatest good in you. One of the things that I've really learned to do, and it comes, kind of true to my nature, is I like to encourage people, be the chief encouragement officer, but to do it in a way where I'm really validating, the greatest good in someone, the riches in someone, not just, hey, dude, you've got nice shoes. Thanks for showing up yesterday on time. Those are fine things.
Sure.
But when someone shows up in my office and they actually have the courage, to maybe even confront me on something, but they do it in a virtuous and kind and courageous way, that starts to change people from the inside. And I love to see those types of behaviors, those types of courageous moments in people, and to validate them, right? Just to, if you see something, say something. And I think that type of a leader is someone that people will follow. They have, regardless if they had the title or not.
Mm-hmm. I actually had an example of that with an employee once, but it wasn't saying anything nice. They'd been mucking up and going home to solve a relationship problem they were having where their husband wasn't changing the baby's diapers and feeding the baby, and they kept asking for time off, and they started losing more money for me than they were worth getting paid, because they weren't collecting, they just weren't doing their job. They weren't collecting the fees. And so after multiple write-ups and conversations, one day they walked into my office and they just exploded to me about what a asshole and a jerk I was, and blah, 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 and all this stuff. And I sat there listening to them as I poured myself a scotch from my back bar in my office, and I let them run themselves out. And I said, and then they got done, and I go, "Are you done?" And they go, "Yeah," because they were kind of surprised at how I took the whole thing. Yeah. And I said, "So are you quitting, or are you going back to work?" And they go, "What are you talking about?" I go, "Are you quitting or going back to work? You just came in and told me what an asshole you think I am. Good for you. But all right, so what are you doing now?" And they're like, "You aren't going to fire me?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not going to fire you. Well, you got a lot of balls to come in here and talk to me that way, but you're half right. I'm an asshole. And let me explain something to you." I don't know if people like this story, but I said to him, and so they kind of perclunkety sat down in the seat after screaming at me at the door. My whole office was hearing it too. My door was open. So it was a teaching moment. And so I used to keep a small bar behind me in the thing with all nice crystal. And so I sat there and poured myself a drink while I was listening to them. And they just were shocked at the nonchalant manner that I was responding with. And I said to them, "Are you going to quit or go back to your chair?" And they go, "You're not going to fire me?" And so they sat down, and I said, do you want a scotch?" And they said no. And I said, "Let me explain something to you. I am an asshole." I go, "Every boss that I've ever worked with is authoritarian. And a lot of times in life, we think authoritarians are assholes. You probably thought your parents were an asshole at one time. Every boss I've ever worked with, even though I maybe regarded them or respected them for a lot of things, every now and then I thought they were an asshole. So if you tell me that I'm an asshole, I'm doing my fucking job."
I bet they thought you were being pretty authentic in that moment, huh?
We're getting really authentic in the moment. So I said, "So my question to you is, are you going to go back and do your work now that you've let that out of your system, or are you quitting?" And they go, "Well, no, I expect you to fire me." And I'm like, "I'm not going to fire you. I go, let me explain something to you. You just came in here and did what you said earlier. Most people would never come and say to my face, and most people wouldn't come in to challenge me. So that kind of,
how did that work out? Did they they do a good job?
So they end up quitting.
Oh, okay.
I'm not going to go back to my thing and keep working. If you're not going to fire me, I'm like, I'm not going to fire you. I kind of respect you a little bit more than that. You came in here and said a bunch of shit. You're not doing your job, and you're costing me a fortune. And you got some stupid husband at home who won't change the baby's diapers and feed the kid during the middle of the day. So somehow that's on me to pay for that. you know, your
That's
home life is a complete mess, but somehow I'm the asshole. But you know, I said, you know, now that we've got this all out of the way, I mean, you can go back to your desk and, you know, as long as, you know, we've resolved that you're going to do better, fine. But no, they just quit. They really expected me to, I guess, respond emotionally and fire them. But it was, I wish I could have filmed the moment because it was just so classic. But you know, that brings us to the point of, you know, maybe people stand up to you. But as you said in your example, you're like, you know, in a nice, respectful way.
You know, it's funny. We can't, you know, we always say I can't control anybody else. That's really true. And so some of the things that, you know, when Dr. Andy and I coach people through, you know, his resilient blueprint thing, what's fascinating is, you know, again, jumping into the deep end of the pool, right? That word authenticity that we throw around all the time.
Yeah.
Oh, it comes from the word author, right? You didn't make you. I didn't make me. You didn't choose your eye color, your taste buds, your fingerprint retina. You didn't choose your own freaking personality. And those of us who have children know that they come out of the gate hardwired. My brother and sister are very different than me. And when they're 2 and 3 and 4 and 5, they're not thinking about being authentic.
Yeah.
They're just doing their deal.
Yeah.
And so what's fascinating is when you know, and of course we throw that word identity around, right? It's all this woohoo authenticity and identity. What's really cool is when you identify what's valuable and what, you know, those words that describe your convictions and strengths and what gives your goosebumps and things, right? That's your identity. You've identified your authenticity. When you've done that, it gives you a sense of authority in your life. You know who I am, who I'm not, you know, the values at which I'm making decisions through that matrix, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
When I want to tell somebody to take a hike or I want to give them a hug, I've already predetermined, you know, when I'm going to do that because I know what I believe. And that sounds kind of deep and whatever, but it's way more, I think, elemental, you know, especially when you think about I don't know about you, but in general, I had really great parents. At the same time, they grew up in a generation where, guess what? You work hard. Like you get up, you kill something, you drag it home. If you bleed, you wrap some duct tape on it and you keep going. You don't cry, you know, be a man. Some of that's honestly a really good thing to pass on. At the same time, you know, looking back, I mean, and this is what I've tried to do with my kids and people around me, right? Is to see their uniqueness. What's their freaking, you know, the retina scan or fingerprint that's on their, you know, their soul, right? And to start getting to know that guy and bring that forth. And it's amazing how then you feel authentic. You feel like you're giving someone permission to be themselves as opposed to, I want you to fit into this box. So
there you go. And that's how I knew that I was living authentically when I told her, you're right, I am an asshole. So there you go. And nothing's really changed. I think I've just gotten better at it. One thing you talk about is crushing the serpent's head, the internal lie of an entrepreneur. I don't know. We may have discussed that already.
No.
What is that?
It goes back to a moment in ISI. My buddy Scott Smith, you know, we're talking about, you know, the obstacle, that the shadow self, right? You know, you've got that headwind when you get up in the morning, you know, should I do this, say this, try this, you know, whatever that is. And you've got that idiot in the mirror. Sometimes it's yourself, you know, telling you no. And I love, Scott said, he looked at me one day because I'm trying to talk myself out of doing something really great. And he said, David, crush the serpent's head. Like he was really passionate. You know, I think on that Zoom that day, right? We're all around the country. And he said, David, look at me. And I'm like, I am looking at you. He goes, look at me.
Look at me.
Yeah. And it was like one of those moments. He goes, David, crush the serpent's head. You are fully resourced for what you need to do in this life. Now get after it. Whatever that is, you know, cut its head off and kick it out the door and get going. And I think, you know, having a bit more of an aggressive approach to, you know, the BS that goes through our minds and hearts, I think is kind of refreshing, honestly, because we entertain all this bull crap all the time.
There you go. Cut off the serpent's head. I think you described my first 10 divorces. I don't know what that means. So anyway, these are just jokes, people. Calm down. Let's see. There's another thing I wanted to ask you about.
Yeah.
Becoming the most resilient person you know. We're kind of getting down there on the time, but
sure.
What are some ways that you found that people can become the most resilient people that they might know?
So it's funny. It helps to define that word, right? So when I'm talking about resiliency, I'm thinking, you know, it's assuming that there's a headwind, right? You get knocked down. Well, if you're resilient, it's the time from when you actually hit the ground, metaphorically, to the time you get up. Is that 10 minutes or is that 10 weeks? And in a more resilient, internal culture, whether that's in yourself, your family, your company, there's literally a return on investment. If a company, this is one of the things that Dr. Andy and I are doing now, is walking, like kind of director level and up, leaders and corporations through the resilience blueprint, because it's not just that stupid credo that's on the wall that nobody looks at, right? We teach people how to become resilient in and of themselves, so that when there's a setback, when there's disappointing news, when somebody says something offensive or whatever it is, you're like, okay, based on my values and convictions, my framework that I've already predetermined, how I'm going to handle these things, how am I showing up? And I like this question is, what would someone like me do in a situation like this? So it's an identity I am statement, as opposed to, gee, I wonder what the president thinks about this, or Joe Rogan, or, any David Goggins, what would he say? I have to go, not that those guys are bad people, but, can I not make a decision for myself and have complete and total ownership over how I'm going to respond to something?
Oh, yeah.
Heck yeah.
Heck yeah. Yeah. David Goggins, man, that guy's something else, man. I read his book. Yeah. Like his drive, his resilience.
Unbelievable.
I'm pretty sure he's a masochist at this point. From what I read. I read his stuff and I'm like, dude, you seem to really have a masochist.
Do you hate yourself? Yeah.
How much do you hate yourself? But yeah, he's extraordinary what he's done. And in his books, there's one of his books that I read recently that just is so moving how he's done his life. But hey, all the more power to him. I just read his books and I feel like I'm sweating just from all the. I went on a 250-mile freaking marathon. I'm just like, what?
And did 400 burpees before breakfast.
Like I'm still working on doing my first. So David, it's been inspiring to have you on the show. Give us your final thoughts and pitch out to people to onboard with some of the systems you're doing in the .coms.
Man, thank you for that. What a pleasure to be here. Again, I'm married 25 years.
I'm sorry.
And I pay my bills by selling thermostat guards right now. And so the Stat Guard Plus is the first one out there, and there's some knockoffs. So buy the original, not the cheap knockoff. So you can find me at davidask.com or statguardplus.com. And by the way, I like to leave people with this. If I can help you in any capacity, I don't care what it is, let me know and I'll just do my best.
There you go. I'll send you my Cash App thing here in a second.
I'm very wealthy. Don't worry about it. I got you.
Okay. All right. You're definitely getting that.
I'm kidding.
You're married. You've been married for 25 years. I know you're not wealthy. I'm just kidding. I'm a single guy. We do lots of marriage jokes on the show. That's why we do the callback of the marriage jokes, the divorce jokes. Because people write me and they'll be like, You say you've been divorced 10 times, 6 times, 7. It's always a different number. How many times is it? I'm like, it's 0. That's the beauty of it. That's really the joke. So there you go. I still own 100% of my shit and I like it. So there you go. I'm still saving up for my first divorce. I just need a couple more million and I think I'll be ready to get married. Thanks for coming on the show, Dave. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. What a pleasure.
There you go. Thanks so much for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss. Twist your friends' arms, not physically, just verbally, just kind of guilt and shame just a little bit. Tell them to subscribe to the show, damn it, or ready, or else. I don't know what that means. Don't do that. Anyway, guys, youtube.com/Chris Voss 1 on the TikTokity. Thanks for tuning in. Be good to each other. Stay safe, and we'll see you guys next time.